Welcome and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our PhD seminar series in business management, and this is our third workshop. In today's workshop, I intend to cover the PhD trajectory, navigating the PhD terrain. And the structure of our workshop will include things like, I'll give you the introduction, institutional stages in the process, of course the labels and the tags of progress, and I'll be looking at things like the coursework phase, especially for a PhD taught program, the coursework phase, the examination phase, the PhD thesis phase, the doctoral committee, establishing the PhD Thesis Committee, the PhD Thesis Proposal, approval of the PhD Thesis Proposal, writing your PhD thesis, and thereafter we shall certainly conclude without forgetting that there is another part that we shall cover, which is the PhD Thesis Orals, or the viva voce, and the approved PhD thesis. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome again, as I have already indicated, to our PhD seminar series. I hope you are relaxed, and I hope you will be able to get the best out of this workshop. This is the third workshop. We have so far covered 2 workshops. So I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that each community usually has identifiable customs, and these customs could be in terms of dress, could be in terms of food, could be in terms of language. Now, academic communities also have established rules which, when learned by those who are new to the context, create a more positive experience and the potential for an extended relationship. Now, as a doctoral student, you will want to learn the language that prevails in your doctoral program. You will want to know the difference, for example, between a PhD concept paper, a theoretical paper, a doctoral thesis, and a PhD thesis proposal. And of course, at the end of the day, if you understand the differences between these things that I've just given you, you'll be able to move very fast and, of course, participate in the conversations with your classmates and your professors. Now, as you learn the technical language, you are also learning many important customs and practices, ladies and gentlemen. And one way to highlight these practices is to contextualize the vocabulary in an overview of the PhD trajectory workshop that we are having right now. And it is useful to know that many terms may be considered synonymous, and yet each institution selects its preferred label. So as you move from Makerere University, Kyambogo University, Gulu University, Mbarara University of Science and Technology, Uganda Matters University, Uganda Christian University, Ndeje University, you will discover that each institution has selected what we call preferred labels to mark the PhD journey, or what we call the PhD terrain. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in one university, students may be assigned an individual that is referred to as an advisor, and at another university, he will be given a person who is referred to as an academic counselor, who is actually appointed to advise, while in other universities, you'll find the word that is being, or the label that is being used as that of a supervisor, ladies and gentlemen. So, as you can see, there are many stages marking progress on a doctoral program, from formal admission to the official awarding of the PhD. And all doctoral recipients must go through all these stages. And my intention today is to take you through these stages. Now, we will highlight fairly predictable stages across doctoral programs, which will help you to understand and therefore travel your local terrain more successful, ladies and gentlemen. So having given you that introduction, let me now turn to institutional stages in the process, and more so examining the labels, tags of progress. Now, there are 4 phases encompassing 8 stages, ladies and gentlemen. And each phase is marked by a significant event. And you need to mark these events so that you don't miss them. Of course, if you mark them, you'll be able to follow them systematically and religiously, and also undertake the various activities that are required. Phase 1 ends when you obtain a provisional admission to the university, and of course, registering for a PhD. Phase 2 is marked by the completion of coursework or proposal development. And again, as I said, there will be a variation depending on whether you are doing a taught PhD or a research PhD, research-based PhDs. Now, of course, I've chosen to advise on the taught PhD because of our PhD, because of the upcoming PhDs in the various universities that require that taught component. And besides, when you go to the thesis stage, of course, the dynamics and the activities involved are more or less the same, ladies and gentlemen. So phase 2 is marked by the completion of coursework. And of course, if you're doing a research-based PhD, that will be proposal development. Whereas at the provisional level, you must write a concept paper. Now, the third phase, ladies and gentlemen, ends the successful completion of the examination or proposal defense for those who are doing the research-based PhD. And phase 4 ends with the approval of your PhD thesis, ladies and gentlemen. Now, although I've given you those 4 distinct phases, I want to assure you that there are a number of activities at all these stages. And advancement to each stage in the process is considered an important indicator of progress from both students and the professors who supervise your work. Now, while many look on these stages as hurdles to overcome, others note that each stage with its unique requirements contributes to the growing knowledge, the growing knowledge base, and which is required to write the PhD thesis. And each stage marks a step closer to achieving your goal. And we will rapidly review those stages, ladies and gentlemen, which will lead up to the PhD thesis phase. And while there may not be an intentional whittling down process, this does occur once in a while, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, approximately 50% of those who enter doctoral programs are awarded degrees, meaning that about 50% do not actually complete. And I believe you attending these workshops will increase the likelihood of your success and completing your PhD program on time. And this is very important, particularly so since many who drop out comment that they had no idea what to expect from a doctoral program. So I want you to listen attentively and give me your undivided attention as we navigate through these stages because they are very important. So let's start with the coursework phase, ladies and gentlemen, because some of you are doing a taught PhD. You are certainly struggling with this phase. Now, on a taught PhD, coursework occurs during stage 2 of the 8-stage process, because stage 1 is about really getting admitted into the university and probably registering for a PhD program. And as a newly admitted student to a doctoral program, you typically enroll on a conditional, or what we call provisional basis. So you are given provisional admission as you join the university. Now, when you satisfy the requirements for the provisional admission, you are given full admission. And for those who are doing PhD by research only, you see this happening at the time when you are joining after submitting a concept paper, which is reviewed by the college or faculty. At that material time, if they discover that you have at least moved from the master's level to another level, indicating that there has been an element of academic growth, then you will be given a provisional admission. Now, when you work on your proposal and you defend your proposal, then you move to the next level and you are given full admission. That is for a PhD by research only or thesis only. But I want to say, if your program is taught, then the process is a little bit different, because at the time when you are joining the university, you are certainly given a provisional admission. But once you reach a certain level, you will be given full admission. But before that, you can only be given what we call a Master of Philosophy, because those things that you do at the preliminary stages are more or less similar to the content that is covered at the master's level, what we call Master of Philosophy level. So, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand this. So the coursework phase is very important because on a taught program, this actually occurs at stage number 2 of the 8-stage process. And as a newly admitted student to a doctoral program, you typically enroll on a conditional, or what we call provisional basis, which I have already articulated. And your letter of admission from your university will explain the conditions placed on your registration, and this will be very clear. And a typical condition in an academic review of your record after the completion of a series of courses then will certainly take you to another level. So those conditions which are placed in the letter must be satisfied before you move to the second level. So once you complete those aspects, after that, of course, you will apply for a review. And after this review, you will become a permanently, what do you call, not permanently, okay, you can use the word permanently, but of course you can say that you will be given full admission and you become a full doctoral student. Now, during the time while you are provisionally enrolled, you will arrange meetings with your designated program, academic advisor or supervisor, who may suggest courses for study and perhaps future directions for the long haul. And these supervisors, ladies and gentlemen, or the fellows you call advisors, they're usually concerned with helping students select courses which are both required to move from provisional admission to full admission or enrollment status, which will broaden the student's knowledge in a specific academic area. And frequently, you'll find these supervisors or advisors teaching on your doctoral program. If they're not teaching on your doctoral program, at least they have a wealth of experience and they have been involved in research and also teaching doctoral students. So you need to meet the conditions, ladies and gentlemen, imposed on your continuation in the program. And of course, concurrent with your status as a provisionally registered student, you will start your coursework. One of your goals is taking a course. One of your goals in trying to to take a course is to move beyond conditional or provisional admission or registration status to full, or what we call permanent registration status, ladies and gentlemen. And the university prospectus spells out those conditions. So in the prospectus for university, you'll find a description of your doctoral program, along with, for example, information about the required courses and the minimum number of credits to be completed in the program, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to invite you to use the information provided in the prospectus, along with informal guidance from your program director or program dean or supervisor or advisor, whatever terminology they use at your university, and also picking some bits and facts of information from your colleagues. I want you to select appropriate courses that will help you graduate on time, but also build a knowledge base so that at the end of the day, you become a competent researcher, somebody who is capable of undertaking independent research, ladies and gentlemen. So your supervisor or advisor is likely to know the frequency with which courses and probably workshops will be offered, and can even suggest an appropriate sequence to facilitate your expanding knowledge base, ladies and gentlemen. So not only will you need to enroll in the requisite courses, but you will need to adopt a useful stance as a student in these courses, ladies and gentlemen. And drawing on your undergraduate and graduate collegiate experiences, you are probably accustomed to completing assignments for each individual course with the goal of accumulating a specific number of credits for the degree. So you must work very hard so that at the end of the day, you do not really have to retake these courses when they are next offered. Some students approach their courses as if they were making a necklace. And they do not actually give it that serious consideration. But in your case, since you want to complete your program on time, please make sure that you work very hard. And each course, as you can see, is an isolated bead added to a long string of similarly isolated beads, which eventually forms a necklace. And if you're going to look at your PhD in that perspective, then it's important that you understand those, because you keep on adding a bead here and there. And therefore, you can look at your course, a PhD course, in terms of a necklace that is being probably created or manufactured, so that you add a bead every time and then. So, however, I should also note that if you choose courses which are connected in particular to your long-term goal of creating and conducting a research project based on the concepts, on the theories and processes discussed in them, you will be using your learning in these courses throughout your doctoral experiences. And that's why you must actually attend workshops, you must attend classes, because you are going to pick a wealth of information. You are going to pick certain competences. You're going to pick certain skills that you utilize in your PhD or doctoral program. And as a doctoral student, you will benefit by taking a long-term perspective on your individual courses. So do not simply go to class and attend haphazardly once in a while whenever you feel like attending, and then you go because you want a grade, right? Remember, there's a thesis that is waiting. And it doesn't matter whether you are doing a PhD which is taught and a PhD that is not taught. There is a research component at the end of the day, and you must apply the knowledge that you are going to gain from the coursework, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why I'm telling you right now that you will benefit from these courses if you take a long-term perspective of these individual courses, ladies and gentlemen. And by considering each course as one site in unfamiliar community, you will obtain a more cohesive perspective on your studies. And of course, it's quite important for us to recognize the fact that hard work pays, and you need to be resilient as well. And by purposely creating connections between your courses, you will develop a more comprehensive understanding of the theories and practices in your discipline. So there's no way you can start doing research in your area when you have no idea of the theories in that particular discipline, in that particular area. If you're going to do entrepreneurship, for instance, we will be asking you whether you are aware of the theories in the area of entrepreneurship. If you're going to do research in the area of supply chain, are you aware of the theories in the area of supply chain? If you're going to do your research in the area of, let's say, accounting or areas, behavioral accounting or behavioral finance, are you aware of the theories in that particular area? So each course, ladies and gentlemen, offers opportunities for you to prepare for your PhD thesis writing in specific ways. For example, you acquire more knowledge about your discipline. You'll be able to connect with related disciplines, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll be able to explore processes for doing research in your major area. You'll be able to identify topics which seem to be at the forefront of discussion in your field. So you must know the current debate in your area. And of course, you need to meet supervisors or professors with a broad range of perspectives, knowledge, and interaction styles. And of course, collaborate with the students who are on the doctoral program, either in university or probably other universities. And of course, trying to speculate on potential PhD thesis topics. Now, in other words, ladies and gentlemen, Coursework offers you a full range of experiences, all of which are preliminary to the writing of your PhD thesis. So the coursework is the foundation for the project that will eventually become, which will eventually become known as your PhD thesis, ladies and gentlemen. And one of your initial goals in taking these courses is to move from provisional to permanent registration status. So provisional admission or provisional registration to full registration, or what you call permanent registration. Ladies and gentlemen, as I had already told you, institutions differ in their requirements for this rite of passage. Coursework grades are reviewed to monitor the fact that you are meeting the minimum grade point average in the program. And feedback from your professors regarding the expectations will guide you in determining your readiness to move to the next stage, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the main, professors evaluate the depth of your learning as well as your effectiveness as a researcher and independent learner in this perspective. So implicitly, professors know that doctoral students need to adopt a scholarly stance as they approach the writing of their PhD thesis. So scholarship at this stage is very important, and therefore whatever you do must be geared towards moving you to the scholarly perspective or level. You need to recognize this as well and provide opportunities for the professors to promote your development in these areas. Now, I know that some institutions conduct, for example, a written examination. They will take you through a series of guided research work or workshops. And of course, presentations for several hours may also be done. So they may really take you through these things, including, but the objective at the end of the day is to assess your knowledge in the areas studied early in the program and see whether you can actually proceed. At other universities, students are required to write and present a brief theoretical or research paper. And frequently there are presentations, including several professors, some of whom might have been your instructors. So please make sure that you attend these presentations so that you understand what is required of you when your turn actually comes up. So do not ignore any activity in the university if you're a PhD student, because you may lose out on a number of things. And remember, there are so many unknown things and there are so many undocumented things that go with a PhD. So unless you attend and unless unless you seek for this information and look for information, nobody will look for you and nobody will give you this information. And you may end up dropping off the program and saying, nobody told me this. I wish I knew, I wouldn't have enrolled on this program. So that is very, very important. Frequently, there are presentations, including several professors, some of whom might have been your instructors, some of whom might be your academic supervisor or advisor, another of whom might be the PhD program director or your dean. This time, professors will discuss your progress to date, as well as attempt to probe the depth of your knowledge and your commitment to completing the program. Now, the institution or your university in this case might impose additional conditions, maybe deferment for a subsequent review, but whatever decision is made, whatever decision is arrived at, please take these decisions as objective and objectively so that you'll be able to move. If you become negative in everything that you do, you will not be able to succeed. Students who are denied permanent registration status may appeal for a decision, and you can easily be denied permanent registration or full registration at this level, especially if you don't meet the minimum requirements that will help you transit from provisional admission to full admission. Now, on passing this experience of provisional admission, you are admitted to full registration status, and this is an important step from the professor's perspective, ladies and gentlemen. It's very important since it reflects an evaluation of your academic record as well as your performance as a student on the program. And from your perspective, it is important. This stage is very, very important for two main reasons. With the permanent registration status, you are now eligible to participate in additional, more advanced activities on the doctoral program. And you have now met formally with the several professors from the program, getting to know them better, meaning that you can even choose who your proposal and the thesis supervisor will be, and the members who will comprise your doctoral committee. So you'll proceed with the requisite coursework and other experiences, seeking now to mount the next hurdle, ladies and gentlemen. And once you become fully registered, you know you have passed one major hurdle in the doctoral process, ladies and gentlemen. And each step connotes growing confidence from the institution concerning the possibility of your completing the program, ladies and gentlemen. So, since we are dealing with the provisional stage, I want to take it to the next level, which is actually the examination phase, ladies and gentlemen. So this examination phase is also a critical phase, and you must understand it very well. Now, becoming a doctoral candidate might be important, yes, and is very important, but as distinct, this stage as distinct from a fully enrolled doctoral student is another mark of progress towards the degree. When you become a doctoral candidate, right, distinct from fully enrolled doctoral student is an important mark in your PhD journey. And a doctoral student is typically admitted into candidacy on passing another hurdle. I know that many students call themselves doctoral candidates, even when they haven't reached this stage of doctoral candidacy. So a doctoral student is typically admitted into candidacy on passing another hurdle. And the timing of the designation of this candidacy level varies greatly across institutions. And at some institutions, candidacy is required after completing approximately 1/2 of the required coursework. At others, it happens at the end of the required coursework, while others have their other requirements. But whatever the case, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of the timing of the candidate's experience, it always requires that the student demonstrates proficiency in certain areas designated by the faculty or designated by your professor or designated by your university, ladies and gentlemen. Now, professors use this activity as a way to emphasize the continuous whittling down or selection process. A coursework does not automatically lead to admission to the PhD thesis stage, ladies and gentlemen. So candidacy experience varies from one university to another. Some institutions, students must achieve passing grades on examination of several days duration called comprehensive examinations, or what they call qualifying examinations. And of course, at some other stage, for you to become a doctoral candidate, you must have passed your proposal, and you must have, probably you are at the stage of presenting your pilot study results, right? So it's very important for you to understand, right, the stage at which you are at. In some universities, for you to be accorded this doctoral candidate stage or level, right, you may have to write a lengthy paper addressing one key issue in the doctoral program. And in writing a qualifying paper, students typically synthesize information from multiple perspectives and project a series of potential research questions in need of further study. Now, the writing of the qualifying paper immerses the doctoral student in an area of research which will frequently become the focus of the PhD thesis, ladies and gentlemen. And there may also be an oral examination or an oral component in which the student meets the selected doctoral program staff to talk about the paper or the examination along with potential research projects. Now, during this oral exam, the professors evaluate the depth and breadth of students' knowledge. And potential outcomes of these viva or the vivavos or oral exams may include things like telling students to go back and read and attend workshops and reconceptualize so that they understand. They may also be told to take additional courses in one specific area or in a number of areas. And of course, they may also be asked to wait and rewrite that particular paper for them to move on. So the students who are officially admitted into candidacy describe themselves as doctoral students or doctoral candidates, ladies and gentlemen. Now, many of you who are still studying and you are doing courseworks and you are at the first level that I mentioned, you are not yet candidates. So do not call yourself doctoral candidates yet. And of course, here you need to be very careful because those who miss this stage, sometimes they are labeled ABD. And ABD, this is just an abbreviation which stands for all but the PhD thesis, meaning that they have passed all the courseworks, but maybe there's a problem with the PhD, so they are unable to proceed to the candidacy level. And once they reach this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that in most cases, they are given a Master of Philosophy degree, and of course, because they will not be able to proceed with the PhD, ladies and gentlemen. So, as you can see in this workshop, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make you aware of what we go through at the PhD stage. And you should never be labeled ABD, which refers to all but the PhD thesis, because this is a derogatory label referring to people who will never complete their PhD thesis. And I do not think that you are actually among those people. So candidacy is an important gate post on the way to the PhD thesis itself. And doctoral students at the this level frequently celebrate this accomplishment with their peers because it's a major achievement in the milestones of the PhD or the hurdles of a PhD, knowing both the success it represents and the challenges it represents. Students have to celebrate in most cases. So allow me now to take you to the third level, which we call the PhD Thesis Phase. And I need to move through this very fast because we have about 10 phases to go through. So once your candidacy is established, you typically enter the PhD Thesis Phase, ladies and gentlemen. So even though in some real sense you are writing your PhD thesis from the day you start the doctoral program, it is at the candidacy stage that this process officially starts. And people will start recognizing you as a PhD student. And they will view certainly you as somebody who has grown in terms of knowledge, right? So you have achieved a certain level of competence which requires you to proceed up to the final stage of your PhD. And many doctoral students approach the PhD thesis believing it is a place to document their learning from their courses. And I want to say that you are mistaken at this level, ladies and gentlemen. That is misguided. A PhD thesis is the product of a personal scholarly exploration, building on and extending the learning in the courses. So it is not a continuation of your courses. No, you are now building and of course consolidating the knowledge you have acquired during the courses or during the classwork, ladies and gentlemen. So for many PhD students, the change in pace between the coursework and the PhD thesis is so dramatic that it takes a considerable amount of time to understand the new expectations. In fact, when some students complete their courseworks, they relax a little bit, and some of them will say, let me relax for about 1 year and then get back onto the PhD research work. I'll complete. Now, that is really a fallacy, and that's why most and I gave you the statistics at the beginning of the course here. That's why 50% of the students who enroll on the PhD do not complete their PhD. And for many PhD students, that change must be monitored and is managed by the students themselves. So that is very important because at this material time, the students certainly will have ceased attending lectures, but you still have to attend scheduled seminars and workshops so that you are able to progress on your PhD. And in fact, it usually becomes the student's responsibility to create the schedule from this time onwards because you are no longer following the university scheduled lecture times for the other courses. So really this is independent study and you must manage the process. So you must take responsibility over this because the PhD is yours and you need the PhD, and any slight relaxation on this PhD will take you back many years and many months and probably weeks, ladies and gentlemen. So while there are posted deadlines for submitting PhD proposals, this deadline occurs each semester and only marks a bureaucratic process. So you will not be given a deadline on which you should actually complete your PhD or probably your proposal. There is no institutionally scheduled date for the completion of your degree. There is no deadline for the writing of your PhD thesis proposal or the PhD thesis itself beyond time limits for completing your degree, ladies and gentlemen. So in some real sense, the PhD thesis is done after proposing viva voce when the doctoral committee finally approves it. And similarly, there are a series of essential stages or steps which stand between you and having an approved PhD thesis, and therefore you must work. And what will happen at this stage that you have to go through a number of activities. So let me articulate these activities, and I'm sure you can see these activities on the screen here. So in this process, you accomplish an array of activities, including identifying a research topic or focus, ladies and gentlemen, establishing your doctoral committee, including your doctoral chair and members of the doctoral committee, Then you write a thesis proposal in collaboration with your doctoral committee, obtain approval for your PhD proposal, obtain certainly approval of your research instruments, conduct a pilot study report, conduct an intensive research study, present your research in written form as a PhD thesis with the assistance of your doctoral committee. You will orally defend your PhD thesis chapters and obtain an approval or the approved PhD thesis for examination, ladies and gentlemen. So those are the 10 steps or major activities that you must undertake. And you can see that these 10 steps or the activities you see on the screen here are involving, and therefore you must work very hard. Now, while this list may appear daunting, as you can see, by reading ahead you'll be guided to meet all the requirements gradually, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move to the 4th level, which is the doctoral committee, because the doctoral committee must be there and it must be really constituted for you to be able to move. But of course, this is a stage that follows after completing your coursework, ladies and gentlemen. But you may be given these, you may be given the doctoral committee a little bit early. So your doctoral committee, this is now the doctoral committee, is comprised of professors from your institution, and occasionally external members are included when there is need for different expertise, or probably if the candidate has contacts with an expert in the field that is somewhere who happens to be affiliated with another academic institution, that person can be part of your doctoral committee. So while there are usually 5-member committees, the stage at which there are 5 members will vary amongst institutions, ladies and gentlemen. So in one university you may have 4 members, in other universities you may have 5, in other university you may have 6, in other university you may have 3, while in some other universities they don't even have doctoral committees, ladies and gentlemen. So the doctoral committee in this case serves as what we call gatekeeper or gatekeepers to the quality of the doctoral thesis produced by a particular university. So doctoral students may have an input in the selection of the doctoral committee members, and one of the members of the doctoral committee certainly becomes the chair of the committee. And the titles certainly will differ from university to university. In one university they are called chair. These are now the people who chair the doctoral committees. In other universities they are called mentors. Other universities they are called directors. Other universities they use the word head. But all the same, they are referring to the same person who chairs the doctoral committees. Now, the PhD Thesis Committee is responsible for guiding your progress in developing an approved PhD thesis. And there are 2 major steps in these activities, ladies and gentlemen. A PhD thesis proposal must be developed, followed by a full-blown PhD thesis. And it is the responsibility of the doctoral committee to ensure that a student produces a quality PhD proposal and a quality PhD thesis. And eventually they are the people who sit and take a decision, of course, along with the external examiners as to whether they should award you a PhD degree or not. And therefore you must be very careful at this time when they are choosing a PhD thesis, because you may never get a PhD from the university depending on the doctoral committee that you have. But if you've got a very supportive doctoral committee, I can assure you they will give you all the support that you need. They will give you all the information you need, and you'll be able to move through the ropes of the PhD and the terrain of the PhD and the hurdles of a PhD, and you'll be able to complete on time, ladies and gentlemen, if you plan it very well. Now, the work of the committee in advising the doctoral candidate occurs within the context of the rules and expectations of the larger institution. So universities have rules and regulations, and the doctoral committees must follow. If you're studying at Makerere University, you've got the rules and the regulations of these committees, of course, in that which are spelled out in the graduate handbook. And if you are studying from other universities, Uganda Matters University, they also have the same. If you are studying from Mombasa University of Science and Technology, they also have a similar document. So the graduate handbook becomes very handy at this stage. So the committee is implicitly accountable and monitored by the dean of the faculty from within the university. So this is very, very important, and you need to really follow through very, 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 very fast. So the committee must be established, and you'll have a chair of the committee. And of course, as you can see here, if you're going to have a doctoral committee, there is actually a fairly complex dance performed around this process of selecting your PhD thesis committee. It's not a very simple thing as you think. And you'll be working with the professor that you have identified to be your supervisor if he's given a letter of appointment to become your supervisor. And of course, you're going to work for an intense extended period of time. And it is important that your preferred interaction style and your learning style is articulated in advance so that you both agree on how you're going to move. So this selection process usually includes many considerations, not the least of which is whether each person has the expertise to contribute to the evolving research project that you have chosen. And these members are frequently identified in the process of developing the PhD thesis proposal, ladies and gentlemen. So as you develop your thesis proposal, right, and as you interact with these people on a regular basis, you'll be able to zero down to specific individuals who should help you. Of course, at the end of the day, the appointment of these fellows will depend on the university and the preference of the university. But by conferring with numerous professors, as the proposal is evolving, the student is able to discern differences in enthusiasm on the part of the different professors for the topic, and you may use this as a basis for suggesting potential doctoral members. And of course, this is very important, and you need to really think through. Now, the selection process is not a simple one. Doctoral students do not make this selection in isolation. The chair is usually a key person in this process, and committees are typically comprised of professors who can offer expertise in a wide range of areas, all contributing knowledge on the development of your research study, ladies and gentlemen. So considering the potential range of expectations represented in any group of professors, it is the student's best, it will be within your interest as a student to gather professors who typically work together and respect each other's views. And if you have little say in this, you need to go and meet the dean of the faculty and have a chat with him, so that at the end of the day, when they are putting together names of individuals who will constitute your doctoral committee, you know exactly that what kind of individuals that you have, and their supervisory styles, and of course the knowledge competences that these individuals have. Now, the PhD thesis proposal, ladies and gentlemen, as I've already told you, represents a carefully crafted project, and of course it's an important element that you must follow. So anyway, we have completed the other stage of having a doctoral committee and the type of individuals that you need to think through. Let me take you to another level, which is actually level 6 at this level, the PhD thesis proposal. Now, the purpose of writing a PhD thesis proposal is formally to propose to the university. Professors, you're actually proposing to the university professors and trying to enlist their support for your PhD engagement at the university, especially in the particular area or field of study. And a PhD thesis proposal represents a carefully crafted project, and it reflects the expertise of the individuals proposing the project, ladies and gentlemen. And an approval must be sought. So at the end of the day, An approved PhD thesis proposal results in a contract between the student and the university with the specific professors designated to support the project. And of course, each of those professors with the specific roles, such as the chair of the proposal, the chair of the committee, and of course, the people who are going to supervise your PhD, ladies and gentlemen. So the PhD thesis proposal in this case then precedes the writing of the PhD thesis. So it's very important that you put in time. I know I'll take you through that process very soon of how you can actually work around your PhD thesis proposal. So our next step, which is step number 7, is seeking approval of the PhD thesis proposal. So you don't simply write and submit as if you are submitting a term paper. Your proposal has to be evaluated and to see whether it meets the minimum university regulations or quality requirements. So the progress from writing the proposal to achieving approval for the proposal you are likely to accomplish is very, very important. And of course, it takes a number of stages, as you can see. Of course, for you to have your proposal approved, you need, first of all, to get approval by the doctoral committee. You need to get acceptance by the doctoral program faculty where you are pursuing your PhD, and acceptance by the, what we call an interdepartmental group professors. Remember, you belong to a particular department, and then you have a faculty where you belong. So if you're going to, let's say, graduate in the area of accounting and finance, your thesis proposal must gain acceptance within the scholars in accounting department, and then the faculty where that department falls, ladies and gentlemen. So your primary focus in seeking approval is your doctoral committee, who have expertise in your specific domain and have worked with you in the formulation of your topic and the research questions. So your committee helps you in designing your study. Your committee then has a vested interest in making sure your proposal is approved when it gets reviewed by a doctoral committee of the program faculty. So this is really very, very important. And there are academic standards that must be followed. And therefore, your document, your proposal, is open to public scrutiny. This is something that you should not actually contest. And your professors and your doctoral committee will be a little bit cautious in offering their approval, because they want to avoid the problems with the collegial and the external reviewers. Their evaluations are likely to be very intense, and therefore you must be patient, meaning that you need to start the process a little bit early, because you cannot rush the PhD processes and of course the institutional requirements. So that's why these people will look at every word in your proposal carefully. They will look to see if there is a cohesive organization of your thoughts, your ideas. They will certainly be concerned with the depth of your knowledge as represented in this document. And you are likely to revise your document many times in the process, ladies and gentlemen. So once they have each independently approved your proposal, other professors are likely to review it as well. So some of these reviewers may be responsible for the format, others may be concerned with protecting the human subjects, while others, they will be concerned with other aspects, ladies and gentlemen. So all these are stages which are very important. Let's go to the next stage in the interest of time. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is stage number 8, writing your PhD thesis. So you have now entered probably the most time-intensive part of the process. You will not only do your research, but you will also write it up in a form which is acceptable as a PhD thesis at your university. You are responsible for doing all the work projected in the proposal. Most of the work will be independently accomplished, initiated by you, and therefore doctoral committee members will read and respond to drafts. They will meet with you, communicate with you on telephone or via email or Zoom, and so forth. Students may create support groups, or what we call community or practice groups, meeting regularly to offer feedback and encouragement to one another while sharing resources and experiences. So the next time you surface, right, institutionally is when your viva voce or examination is scheduled. I'm trying to rush through, ladies and gentlemen, so that we complete this workshop. And of course, consultations are very important and key at every stage. So the student may need to add and or revise major sections between the time the chair is ready and the rest of the doctoral committee certainly agrees. So read it one professor may actually mean different things to other professors. Read in one institution may mean different things to another institution. So the next big step in scheduling of the PhD thesis orals is also another important stage that must be followed. And in some institutions, the PhD thesis is written in collaboration with 3 professors, I've already said, while in other places about 5 professors or 5 professors. But of course, that is another stage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the 9th stage, which is actually PhD thesis orals. The PhD thesis committee decides when it is time to schedule orals, right? So once you've done your work, right, and you have submitted, of course, you've gone through the proposal development, you've gone to the field, collected data, you've done all that, right, you will be scheduled for defense because you must defend your work. So the PhD thesis committee decides when it is time to schedule the viva voce or orals. Now, the oral examination, often called an oral defense or viva voce, is a publicly scheduled activity open to the university community and the general public, taking anywhere from 1 to 3 hours or 4 hours. Sometimes some students take about 5 or 6 hours. Now, the participants include, but are not limited to, the doctoral committee, the candidate, the internal and external reviewers or examiners, and the internal examiners come from within the universities, while the external examiners come from outside. Now, while external examiners may come from institutions nationwide, or even foreign in this case, they represent expertise in the areas addressed in the PhD thesis. And the last group in this case is what we consider as outsiders, but very, very important, and therefore your PhD thesis is actually an international product that you must really think about seriously. And there is usually a written record of the evaluation of the professors, and they will do this before the viva voce is probably held. So the internal examiners will read your thesis and write comments. The external examiners will also write. Once there are no major variations in the decisions, although the grades may differ, then you'll be invited for a defense because you must defend your work. Now, there are many academic goals accomplished at the oral stage: a presentation of the research project, a discussion of the process and findings, and an examination of the candidate's understanding of the PhD thesis research and the knowledge related to it. So there are also power struggles that surface at these events, and you must be aware of them. And depending on the mix of professors, it is possible to have people whose academic orientations or philosophies are diametrically opposed sitting at the same table. Now, while the committee might represent one clear philosophy, the presence of an opposing voice may provide a contentious setting, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if professors have personal grievances, you may also find these evidenced at these events as well. So that's why you need to understand the members of the doctoral committee and what they want, so that they do not surprise you during the viva voce to bring out all those things. I've quite sometimes while attending the doctoral defenses, I've had professors saying, well, I told the student to remove this. I told the student to revise this. I told the student to do this and the other. And the student was very arrogant, and the student refused. And these are things which are always discussed in your absence, ladies and gentlemen. So you need to be very careful so that you do not certainly cross lines with the professors. While at some institutions, the orals are a fairly perfunctory experience with champagne waiting at the conclusion, at other institutions, it is fairly common for the student to be assigned to rewrite, rethink, or redo sections of the PhD thesis. And in most instances, ladies and gentlemen, while there is a need to continue working on the document, there is no need to go through a second oral examination. But in rare occurrences, the student is required to go through the entire process and experience again. And once the PhD thesis has received a pass grade, there is one last hurdle to mount, getting an approved PhD thesis, and that is our last the last step, ladies and gentlemen. Now, getting the approved PhD thesis means that the professors have okayed it, right? But before it is accepted in the university, some universities have, for instance, an editorial board which will seek to confirm specific style guides. They want to see whether these specific style guide, for instance, has been followed, right? Whether they have followed the APA style of referencing, the Chicago type of referencing, etc., right? So that's why you must know what is required in your university. Don't simply pick any style because it looks nice and probably it's very simple. So that is really very important at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. So viva voce can be done, but your thesis is not yet approved until you go through this process. So some reviews certainly will focus on your format, while others consider the effectiveness of your writing style. And after all these criteria are met, you are almost home free, ladies and gentlemen. There are still others who certify that what I mean here is that there will be some other people, although you have completed the other major part of the thesis, but there are also administrative requirements, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, they might say the PhD thesis is fine, it has been approved, but now the accounts, the faculty, and the department must start working, ladies and gentlemen. So these ones will certify that you have paid your tuition for each semester, you have been on the program, that all library fees have been paid, and that you have also met all the bureaucratic requirements. If, for instance, you are supposed to sit 5 vivas, there must be 5 and not 3. So if you have only sat 3, you will not be allowed, although you have passed the final defense. So all these are satisfied. Now, when they are all satisfied, ladies and gentlemen, then your PhD thesis will be approved, ladies and gentlemen. And that is an important element in establishing your eligibility to receiving your doctorate degree. Now, let me add something here as I close, right? And this is really non-completeness in the doctoral program. I've been talking about individuals who go through the process smoothly and somehow they complete their PhD programs. But as I said at the beginning of this workshop, is that approximately 50% of students who enter a PhD program leave without graduating. And the results can be found in literature. And if you visit various universities, you'll be able to see the completion rates. In some universities, the completion rate is as small as 2% or 3% or 1%. In other universities, about 30%. And I know there are some other universities that are doing very well where the completion rate is about 60% or 50%. But in some other universities, or most universities, the completion rate is as low as 50%, ladies and gentlemen. And the reasons why they don't complete their doctoral program include what we call personal, or what we may call programmatic reasons. So personal reasons prevent them from completing their program, or even what we call programmatic. So these ones come from the program. So now personal factors include needing time to spend with the spouse or children, or even ailing parents, having exhausted finances to cover the costs of the PhD program, attention to health, and changing career goals, ladies and gentlemen. So those are some of the personal issues. But of course, you can expand the list because you know these things better since you are already on the PhD program. Now, the program-related factors, what we call the programmatic factors, they will include things like isolation. You know, PhD is a lonely journey, right? You certainly celebrate, you suffer alone and celebrate alone, ladies and gentlemen. So some people do not want this continued isolation. Some people get confused in the process. So there's confusion, there's hostility. And of course, you may also hold unpopular perspectives or philosophies, and inaccessibility to supervisors or even courses can make you drop off the program, ladies and gentlemen. Now, many who leave are embarrassed, feeling defeated by the system. And I want to tell you that one of the scholars Lovitz actually identified the lack of institutional support as a major factor in students' decisions to leave their doctoral programs. Now, that support could be in form of information about the program or in relationships with the students and the faculty, ladies and gentlemen. Now, those who feel defeated frequently find themselves in another program before long, but being older and wiser, they are more likely to persevere the second or third time around and get their degrees. But anyway, as you can see, the whittling down or selection process is a gradual, and ladies and gentlemen, it's gradual. And at each stage, there are some who choose not to continue, and the decision rests entirely on the student. Now, some students choose to leave the program rather than subject themselves to assessment at each of the stages, viewing the process as a game rather than an authentic academic experience, ladies and gentlemen. So it's very important for you to work very, very, very hard and ensure that you actually complete. Right, now, of course, those are individuals who wonder why there are constant evaluations, and they may not really be willing to go through that process. But there are also so many other reasons, ladies and gentlemen, that I cannot really go through in these workshops. But when we are done, I'll ask you to debate some of these issues and also to raise more other factors, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, the other issue, as I said, could be limited resources. Some people join their PhD programs without really planning through their finances. So the fellow goes through the first year. Even the first year becomes very hard to clear in terms of fees. The second year and the third year, so they really stop somewhere. So you need to think through all these things as you really enroll on the PhD program. But I also know there are so many funders. If you go to the internet, they have various grants available, and you'll be able to meet these fellows who have the money, and they can help you meet your expenses or tuition expenses and research expenses as well. So ladies and gentlemen, it's very important for us to know that this process is really an involving experience, and therefore you must plan this experience a little bit early in your PhD program so that you do not get defeated, ladies and gentlemen. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming along and attending this workshop 3. And more so when we are dealing with the PhD seminar series in business management. Our topic today has been the PhD trajectory, but more so focusing on navigating the PhD terrain, ladies and gentlemen. So just in a way of summary, I gave you an introduction. I took you through institutional stages in the process, and these are the ones that mark the PhD terrain, and you need to navigate through these. The coursework phase is a terrain you need to navigate. The examination phase, another terrain you have to navigate. The PhD thesis phase, you need to navigate through that. The doctoral committee phase, you have to navigate through that. Establishing the PhD thesis committee is another hurdle you must jump. The PhD thesis proposal is another stage that is tedious and time-consuming and involving. Approval of the PhD thesis proposal is not an easy task either, but you must be prepared to go through it and writing your PhD thesis. All these are important stages, and once you master the things that we have discussed here, you'll be able to navigate through what we call the PhD terrain, navigating the PhD terrain. And that is part of the PhD trajectory. I want to thank you. I want to welcome you to join us to our workshop 4, which will take place this week again. But I can only say stay well, stay safe, enjoy your day. Have a nice time. Bye.